a new revenue figure that is showing on this chart that is now leaked.
The breaking tension around the WNBA labor talks did not come from a routine negotiating update. It erupted because of what leaked out of a closed-door meeting and how dramatically it reframed the entire power dynamic between the league and its players. What initially sounded like another familiar dispute over fairness and revenue sharing suddenly became something far more complicated and far more dangerous for the future of the league. When the details surfaced, they didn't just surprise fans. They fundamentally altered public perception of who was being reasonable and who might be overreaching at the worst possible moment. At the center of the storm is a proposal that, on paper, looks almost unbelievable for a league that has never turned a profit. According to the leaked materials, WNBA owners put forward a framework that projects a supermax salary of roughly $2.4 million by 2031 under a high-growth scenario, with a base supermax near $1.9 million even without aggressive growth assumptions. Average salaries under that same framework could climb toward $1 million annually if the league sustains modest year-over-year expansion. These are not incremental raises. They represent a complete transformation of what it means to be a professional WNBA player. Yet despite that, the players walked away from the table, and that decision is what turned a private negotiation into a public crisis. The meeting itself already hinted at trouble before the numbers even leaked. Roughly 40 players attended, some in person and others over Zoom. But what stood out most was what wasn't there. The co-chairs of the negotiating committee were absent, officially due to weather, even as other high-profile figures managed to be in the same city that day. Inside the room, reports quickly emerged of a fractured committee. One faction favors a hard-line stance that includes the possibility of a strike, while another group is deeply uncomfortable with that risk. That division matters, because labor negotiations only work when the players speak with one voice. Here they clearly do not. What made the owners' stance so jarring is that they didn't arrive with a new offer. They reiterated their position and effectively told the players that the numbers on the table already reflect how far they are willing to go. ESPN later obtained a PowerPoint presentation shown to players, and that presentation changed the entire tone of the debate. The league outlined a conservative base proposal and a higher growth scenario built around roughly 5% annual growth. Under the base case, average salaries still rise to levels that would dwarf current compensation. Under the growth scenario, the financial upside becomes historic. The catch, and this is where much of the conflict lives, is that the biggest numbers are not guaranteed. They are tied to sustained league growth. That distinction is everything. From the league's perspective, this is not an attempt to shortchange players, but a risk-sharing model rooted in reality. The WNBA has existed for nearly 3 decades without ever posting a profit. Every season has been subsidized, largely by the NBA. Owners argue that guaranteeing massive salaries without proven long-term revenue growth could jeopardize the league's survival. From the players' side, the argument is emotional and understandable. They see rising attendance, better television ratings, more sponsorship interest, and unprecedented attention driven by new stars. They believe this is the moment to secure a revenue split that reflects their value, not just projections tied to conditions they don't fully control. Where this negotiation turns volatile is in optics. Before the leak, it was easy for fans to side with the players. The narrative of underpaid athletes fighting entrenched ownership resonated. After the leak, that sympathy has started to erode. Turning down a proposal that outlines a path to million-dollar average salaries in a league that has never made money forces a much harder question. Is this about fairness, or is it about overplaying leverage during a fleeting window of momentum? That momentum is real, but it is also fragile. The WNBA just came off the most successful season in its history. Attendance surged. Media coverage expanded. Casual fans who had never followed the league tuned in. For the first time in years, the conversation around women's professional basketball felt genuinely optimistic. And now, all of that is being put at risk by a potential work stoppage with training camps approaching and the season calendar already set. Strikes do not happen in a vacuum. They interrupt habits, break narratives, and give fans permission to move on. The revenue-sharing comparison to the NBA is where the debate often loses grounding. NBA players receive roughly half of basketball-related income, but that structure exists in a league generating billions annually and operating profitably for decades. Applying that same framework to a league still in its growth phase ignores the economic context entirely. The WNBA owners are not arguing that players don't deserve more. The proposal clearly shows they are willing to give more, dramatically more. What they are arguing is that growth must be proven and sustained before the most aggressive compensation kicks in. From a business standpoint, that position is difficult to dismiss. Another overlooked dimension is who benefits most from the current proposal. Star players with endorsement deals and overseas contracts can afford to gamble. They have financial cushions and alternative income streams. Middle-tier and minimum salary players do not. They are the ones who would see the most immediate life-changing impact from guaranteed raises, better benefits, and improved working conditions. A prolonged strike would hit them hardest, not the top of the roster. That reality helps explain the reported fracture within the players' committee. Different financial realities produce different risk tolerances. What complicates matters further is that the proposal includes quality-of-life improvements that rarely make headlines but matter deeply to players. Changes to testing policies, benefits, and access to league events signal that this is not a purely adversarial offer. It reflects an attempt to modernize the league's relationship with its athletes while keeping one eye firmly on financial sustainability. That doesn't mean the deal is perfect, or that the players shouldn't push back. It does mean this is not a lowball offer made in bad faith. The danger now is timing. The league finally has mainstream attention, and attention is the most fragile currency in sports. Lose it, and it may not come back. Sponsors are not sentimental. Networks are not patient. Fans who discovered the league last season are not guaranteed to wait through labor disputes to see what happens next. A strike at this moment would not just pause the season, it would reset the narrative entirely, and not in a way that favors the players. Ultimately, this standoff comes down to a single question. Is it better to secure a deal that fundamentally transforms player compensation while betting on growth together, or to risk everything for a larger theoretical share of revenue that may or may not materialize? The owners have drawn their line. The players must now decide whether to recalibrate, counter with a realistic adjustment, or follow through on a threat that could undo years of progress in a matter of weeks. So now it's your turn. If you were a WNBA player looking at these numbers, would you take a deal that guarantees massive raises and offers a clear path to even more if the league keeps growing, or would you risk the season to push for a bigger slice of uncertain future revenue? Do you think the union is protecting its players, or misreading the moment entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more deep, honest breakdowns of the biggest stories shaping sports right now, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned. This story is far from over.